Rogers TV. This program is brought to you by Rogers Xfinity, connecting you to more of what you love. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
And welcome everyone back to RTV Sports Rap as we continue on in 2025. Spencer Byers and alongside me is basically looks like a fall lineup today. Lucas Ireland, Manny Pava, JC Coots, and Mark McKelvey all alongside me today. And guys, I think we have to start with the NFL. The Super Bowl is now booked. A rematch of just a few years ago. The Philadelphia Eagles against the Kansas City Chiefs will be rematching again in the big game in the NFL. And Manny Pava, I think even though you like your sporadic appearances, I think it would be a disservice to not start with the Philadelphia Eagles fan. So, Manny, go ahead. Super Bowl rematch just a few years ago. The Chiefs did win that game against the Eagles just a few years ago. Do you think it is a retelling of history, or do you think the Eagles are able to beat the Chiefs and able to get some revenge of the Super Bowl just 2 years ago?
Spencer, I'm having trouble hearing you because I'm at the top of Lincoln Financial Field. I haven't left since Sunday's game here. As you can see, 66,000 of my closest friends are still in the building celebrating the victorious beatdown of the Washington Commanders. And do you think, I think I heard you say this correctly, but I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Are you trying to suggest that the Philadelphia Eagles have no shot against the Kansas City Chiefs?
Not the words I said. I just said that I know that last time these two teams faced off in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs were able to get the win. I was asking you, do you think that it'll be a retelling of history? Do you think the Eagles will get their revenge?
Of course they will get their revenge. Everybody in the entire world, except for maybe Missouri, the state of Missouri, is chiefed out. Nobody wants the Kansas City Chiefs to win this. And because the full support, oh, hey, AJ, nice to see you, buddy. Saquon, that's my guy right there. Because everyone else is cheering on the Philadelphia Eagles, they will be victorious in the 59th Super Bowl, and green and silver confetti will rain down on the field in New Orleans.
Well, Manny, as you just illustrated, you think the Eagles are going to be able to pull out the big game in a rematch of the Super Bowl just 2 years ago. What about you, Mark McKelvey? Who do you think will win the matchup between the Chiefs and the Eagles? Which, and I will just give Manny credit, I think we all are chiefed out. No one wants to see the Kansas City Chiefs to win, but who do you think they will win?
Well, first of all, how about the geography lesson by Manny Pava? Kansas City is not in Kansas. Is that not the most amazing thing? Yeah, you're right. I think everybody is going to be rooting against the Chiefs here. I know as somebody who, I'm a casual football fan and I like to track everything going on. But, the Bills had me pretty invested this season. Thought this was the year. That's the only thing that scares me. Every time you think it's the year, the Chiefs still get it done. And I could definitely understand some nerves maybe on the side of the Eagles, but having watched both those games on Sunday, just that second half domination by the Philadelphia Eagles to just leave Washington behind. Washington maybe thought they had a little hope there at the end of the first half, but I mean, it was never even close. And watching Saquon Barkley and just the way he's steamrolling right now through his opponents, I really like the Eagles. I mean, you guys can chime in with what you think here, but watching that game the other night is a coin flip between Kansas City and Buffalo. I think Kansas City was the better team, but by how much? Not a whole lot. Pretty close, 3-point game. I don't know. I don't know if this is that Chiefs juggernaut, but the scary part again is they find a way to win. One possession games, they somehow come out on top. I don't know what it is, but it's a mental block for opponents, and maybe the mental edge is still with the Chiefs going into this rematch from a couple years ago.
Well, JC, I'll go to you next. Surprised that no one's talked about the refereeing yet, because I know how everyone in the NFL feels that the Chiefs do get a better shake than just about everybody else in the NFL. I will mention the Chiefs did beat the Bills 32-29, and the Eagles did throttle the Commanders. I believe it was 53-23 in the end for that one. So, JC, who do you think will win in the Super Bowl this year?
Well, first of all, congrats to Patrick Mahomes on reaching Tom Brady status. And I don't mean that in terms of wins or Super Bowl championships. I just mean that in terms of people not liking him for the pure reason that he's really, really good. and that the refs really seem to be on his side. I think we saw that again in the game against Buffalo. We all remember that measurement. Come on, that was a first down. You can't kid me on that, but it should have been a different story for the Bills. But here we are again, talking about the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Are they likely to win? I mean, maybe. I mean, the Eagles look good, especially after that win. But was it that the Eagles were that good, or was it that Washington, a team that's really not used to winning in the postseason for a long, long time, was it that they just weren't ready? I don't know. I'm not going to bet my bank account on it, which just checking right now is $6.18. So I'm not going to bet at all on the Eagles, but I think that I would love to see them win. And the Chiefs, meanwhile, though, they are a team that knows how to win. Like, this is going to be history if they get this third straight Super Bowl. Taylor Swift's going to be there again, so that's the X factor we all got to watch for, and we'll see it on our screens when she shows up like 20 times during the game. But listen, I think if you're betting against the Chiefs, it's a hard bet. I would think it's going to be a close game between the two teams. But honestly, how can you not think that Patrick Mahomes and company, and the way Andy Reid drew up those plays between him and the offensive coordinator in the dying moments, that Buffalo game, where Mahomes just found somebody every single time. How does he do it? Has he deflated the balls? We don't know. But there's just something about that Chiefs team that's hard to bet against.
Well, we will talk about the props and stuff like that next week going into Super Bowl Sunday, because I know we have a lot of fun with the props, and I know Taylor Swift, How Many Times Should We Show on TV, will be a prop, and we will talk about it, and I think we're all going to take the over, because it doesn't matter what the number is, she'll be shown on TV a lot, every quarter, and all times. Lucas, we'll end with you before we get into the NFL coaching cycle that is almost, I believe, over now. Who do you like going into the Super Bowl in just a couple weeks' time? Rematch between Philly and KC if it's the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Lucas, who do you like?
Well, who do I want? The Eagles. I mean, like we said, I don't think there's a whole lot of people that want KC to win again. You know, we don't want them to go for the three-peat. A lot of people are tired of it. I haven't watched a whole lot of football, but I can tell you right now, I'm not a huge fan of the Chiefs. Because maybe it's because they're that good. Maybe it's because of the whole, reffing issues that other teams have faced. We've seen it all season long. We've seen it last year. They just seem to get more calls in their favor. That's just how it has been, and I have a very, very strong feeling that's going to continue into the Super Bowl game against Philadelphia. Well, and one thing that also wasn't mentioned. Now, I'm not a big conspiracy guy, but I have seen this online quite a bit, and it's been brought back, and that is the Super Bowl is set from like beginning of the season conspiracy by looking at the Super Bowl logo. This year, the Super Bowl logo's colors, red and green. What teams are playing? Philly and KC. Now, people had talked about, oh, but last year it was the 49ers and the Ravens colors, but then it switched to the 49ers and the Chiefs. I saw a few people respond to that saying it was because when Travis and Taylor got together, that turned things around and they changed the scripts mid-season. So there's definitely a lot of conversation about that online. If you haven't seen it, I envy you because I've seen a lot of it. But yeah, I want the Eagles to take it, but unfortunately, I don't see it happening. I think KC is going to win, whether it be pure skill, whether it be officiating or any other means. I just don't see it happening.
By the way, hold on, guys.
Here we go. Go ahead.
I'm surprised Manny didn't bring it up. But if you need another reason to cheer for the Eagles, Sidney Brown is from London, Ontario. It's the first time since 2022 a Canadian has played in the Super Bowl. So there you go. There's a Canadian connection.
I like it. I like it. Spencer, I just wanted to point out that anybody who ever starts a sentence with, I'm not a big conspiracy guy, but they're going to tell you a conspiracy. And Lucas, I know you can't escape it right now. Everybody thinks this whole thing is set up. You know what, though? Sports is the best theater in the world, right? It's the best drama. It's the best reality show.
Absolutely, it is. I agree with you on that one.
And that's what people want to find.
So the Eagles are going to beat the refs and the Chiefs.
Got to beat.
Well, they're going to have to beat. They're going to have to beat both, Manny, if they expect to win. I think we all kind of know that they're going to have to not just beat the Chiefs, but probably also beat some calls that they may not agree with by the end of the night.
Let's go. We can do it.
Well, Manny, as I said last week, which you weren't here for, I said I hope neither of the Eagles nor the Chiefs make it because I can't pick either. Now that both teams have made it, I have to pick one. I will pick the Eagles. I would rather see you happy, Manny Pava, than hear the Chiefs win a three-peat. I would rather see you happy. So I hope that I see you in the middle of January singing your Fly Eagles Fly garbage that no one wants to hear. But I'm hoping you sing it on the episode after the Super Bowl so I don't have to hear the Chiefs have won a three-peat. That would make me happy. But we'll just have to see. Now, moving over to the NFL coaching cycle, a ton of head coaches have now been officially signed with their new teams. I believe the last vacancy was hired with the Dallas Cowboys hiring Brian Schottenheimer as their new head coach, the OC of the team of the last 2 seasons. You also have Ben Johnson, who we mentioned, is already gone to the Chicago Bears. Aaron Glenn now went to the New York Jets, so the Lions are now looking for an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator this offseason. You've also got Liam Cohen going to the Jacksonville Jaguars from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You've also got Mark Vrabel going to the New England Patriots, one of the first coaches signed in this cycle. And Pete Carroll, the probably more surprising one, the 73-year-old or 74-year-old coach, becoming the oldest NFL coach in history, being hired by the Las Vegas Raiders out of the Seattle Seahawks system as he went from a head coach to advisor role last year. So I'll start with you, Mark McKelvey. Which hiring do you think maybe was the most shocking or kind of got you out of your seat the most, maybe out of the fit or out of just kind of shock value of who they picked?
I don't know if I have an answer to that necessarily. I think the Pete Carroll one caught my attention for sure, and I wasn't tracking it that closely, but I mean, the guy's got quite the resume, and I feel like in Vegas, they need to get something like that in there, and maybe Pete Carroll provides some stability and can settle things down there and have a little bit of success. So I think that one stood out the most to me. And 74 years old, I don't think the man looks 74 to be honest. So he's got a lot more in the tank, I think, and still something left to prove. I'm sure those competitive juices, they never go away.
Well, I know he was unhappy when he was moved out as the head
Mhm.
coach last year in Seattle for Mike Macdonald. So it is nice to see him back as a head coach. But again, 74-year-old does kind of worry me, even though, as you mentioned, Mark, he is probably the leanest and most muscular 74-year-old on earth. So I'll now go to you, Manny Pava. Is there any hire you thought is interesting as the NFL cycle kind of comes to a close with the coaching cycle?
Hey Nick, how you doing? Coach of the year right there. Nick Sirianni just walked by here at Lincoln Financial Field. Great to
What's he
see you,
doing up in
Nick.
the nosebleeds?
He's just walking around greeting all the fans who have been here for 4 days. So let me just say this: that the last Pete Carroll's 74. Didn't the
Yeah.
Raiders win their last playoff game 74 years ago? Like the Raiders haven't been relevant in years. So maybe, just maybe, Pete Carroll brings them into relevancy. Listen, the biggest shocker to me is the Dallas Cowboys. What the heck are they doing hiring a guy who has never coached in his life? He's been a offensive assistant or offensive coordinator who hasn't called plays, by the way, but he's been an offensive coordinator for 20 some odd years now. What are the Cowboys doing? This is their window to be competitive. Shouldn't they be the ones hiring Pete Carroll or Mike Vrabel or Ben Johnson to that point? Like, this just screams at me that Jerry Jones doesn't want somebody to take the spotlight away from him. So he's going to hire another guy who's a no name who can't draw headlines. So Jerry can have his world, can have his cake and eat it too.
Well, Manny, to that point, the Cowboys were the last team to hire their head coach in Schottenheimer, and with that, Mike McCarthy, who was requested by the Bears 3 days before he was released by the Cowboys to be interviewed for the Bears job, and they said no. So that would have made you believe, well, maybe Mike McCarthy will be back because obviously, if you're going to reject him to have an interview with another team, you plan to re-sign him. They didn't. So I again just don't know if there was much of a plan in Dallas by Jerry Jones and the brain trust in Dallas, but I guess we'll never really know. But I know as
Further,
an Eagles fan, you believe they probably don't.
yeah, further to that point, like New Orleans still hasn't hired a coach. They didn't even request an interview from Brian Schottenheimer. I don't think any other team requested an interview from Brian Schottenheimer, but he's good enough for Jerry in Dallas. Hey, as an Eagles fan, it's good for me too.
That it is. Well, now go to you, Lucas. I know football is something you've been trying to strive to be a little more into. And which hiring were you kind of interested in as the coaching cycle continues?
Before I get into that, I just want to say I'm with you, Manny. I was so confused when I saw what the Cowboys did. I don't know what they're planning to do here. I'm just I'm interested to see how it goes for them. But the one that I think a lot of people really like from a certain standpoint is Ben Johnson to the Bears. Now, we knew soon after the Lions got eliminated, he was going somewhere. We just had that feeling. But I think it's going to be very beneficial because what they're trying to do is they're trying to get someone who can help Caleb Williams in his second year in the league. And I'm interested to see how it goes for not only the Bears, for Williams. Will his numbers improve? And if they do, how much better will he be in year two rather than his rookie season just this year?
I will say, Lucas, that I think Ben Johnson is the best hire. I think he is the guy who's been the most picky out of any most recent head coaching pick. He had a bunch of interviews last year with as a Lions OC, chose not to take a job last year, takes the Bears job this year. Caleb Williams, former first overall pick. He has three wide receivers that are all fantastic. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, who is older, but Rome Odunze, another top 10 draft pick out of Washington. I think he sees that offense and sees something that's ready to go. I think defense could be better, and he got his guy in Dennis Allen. Ironically, as you mentioned there, Manny, Dennis Allen, who got out of the New Orleans, I believe was brought in as DC in Chicago. So we'll see what that looks like with the next year in the Bears, especially because again that division's really tough. And I'll go to you, JC, in that division with the Packers. Who exactly do you see as the most interesting hire into this coaching cycle?
I think it's probably Mike Vrabel. It sounds like the early reports out of New England is that he's really changing the dynamic of the team. He's changing the culture already within the organization, and I think maybe possibly he might have the biggest impact. But that's going to remain to be seen. The one thing he did do was get another Belichick out of that organization. Brian Belichick, Bill's son, was the safeties coach there. He's left the team now with the announcement of the newest hire. So who knows if he winds up with his dad like his brother did, or what's going to happen next. And if we're going to be hiring back old coaches, at least Bill Belichick's not coming back. But Pete Carroll, I mean, hey, great news if the year is 2005, but unfortunately it's not. I still don't understand why we have to go back to the old coaches. Like, is there something in them that we're missing as NFL fans? Like, well, what magic do they have? Because now it seems to be we're down to younger coaches, and how they're making headlines is like, if you look at like Detroit, for example, and Dan Campbell, it's like, continuously running offense, going for it on fourth downs. Like, it's a whole new system and a whole new way of thinking. So why do we keep having to go old school? It doesn't make any sense. But best of luck to the Raiders. I mean, they're a greatly run organization, much like the Dallas Cowboys. And I am surprised, very surprised, to Manny's point, that this is what Jerry Jones went out and did. I mean, his biggest success up to this point isn't even on the football field. I think it's having a guest appearance on Landman on the Amazon Prime series. Like, I don't know that he's really done much lately. It was supposed to be Deion Sanders. That's what we wanted to see, was Deion Sanders coaching on the sidelines and losing as a coach with the Cowboys. But instead, we get some no-name that obviously is a budget choice. I mean, that's just it. They're saving money because who knows what they still owe Mike McCarthy and the previous coaches. And this isn't going to work out in Dallas. But you know what? My best friend's a Dallas Cowboys fan, and I'm not. And I'm just happy to see them continue to implode year after year.
That's another interesting thing you mentioned there, JC, with the idea that, Deion Sanders said he was interested in the job out of Colorado in the college game. It seemed like the Cowboys were interested in Deion coaching the team, and it just seemed like nothing went from basically that point onward. I know Michael Irvin made his thoughts known on his YouTube channel that he thought it was a missed opportunity by the Cowboys to not hire his former teammate on a Super Bowl winning Cowboys team. But we'll see if Deion does get an NFL job in the next couple of years, or if he does stay in college. Because I know there's been a lot of will he, won't he, picking at the dandelion in that particular relationship, at least in my opinion. But now we'll move to the NHL, where one of the bigger trades in recent memory just happened, and it was kind of out of the blue, at least to me. I didn't see any reports of this coming down the pipeline. Mikko Rantanen is no longer a Colorado Avalanche member. He's now with the Carolina Hurricanes. He is dealt to the Hurricanes, as I mentioned, as a big part of that deal. Chicago retains half of Rantanen's $9.5 million cap hit. They get a third round pick, their own third round pick from 2025 in the deal. The Avalanche get in their part of the deal Taylor Hall from the Blackhawks as well as Martin Necas from Carolina. So I'll start with you, JC, on this one. I think I'm going to ask you a winner, even though I think I all know who the winner will be. But who do you think is the best out of the deal as the years will go on? But who do you think is the winner right now?
I mean that's a toss up, obviously with what Carolina got with the prospects in the future, and yeah, I mean you get a little bit of veteran stability in Taylor Hall. Although it's something to say that Chicago sends him out, and all they get in return with a 3-team deal is a draft pick. So was he that great? Has he totally fallen from grace from where he used to be? I'm not sure with Taylor Hall. It seems like every time he gets a fresh start, he seems to do well for a little bit of time. So maybe he will in Carolina. But obviously, Colorado, they might be considered a winner in all this. Chicago is not. Chicago seems to be going through a thing right now. Connor Bedard hasn't quite worked out to the extent that they were hoping for. And I don't know how a move like this helps his development in any way. You need to surround him with a certain type of players. And at some point, they need to start winning. And based on the result of this trade, Chicago is nowhere near starting to become a great team or a team that's going to win much.
I would agree with that. I'll now go to you, Lucas. I know again, hockey is your sport. What do you make of the Rantanen into Carolina deal for Martin Necas, Taylor Hall, and some others?
Well, it makes sense to a degree, especially for Colorado trading Rantanen. I mean, Rantanen, he and his camp have been open about the fact that he wants a $14 million deal or somewhere around the numbers of Leon Draisaitl. They either can't or don't want to pay that, so they move him off to Carolina, which great pickup for Carolina, by the way. I really like what they picked up in this trade. And the thing with Taylor Hall, too, coming in from Chicago's not a very good hockey team. So maybe a change in scenery to a contender this year. Maybe that will help turn things around for Taylor Hall's season. And who knows? Maybe they'll go from, contender to possible champion, depending on how how the trade ends up going. Not just for like the far future, but just for this season alone. Another thing too is I'm not sure what the plan for paying Rantanen is for the Hurricanes. I'm not sure if you guys have heard anything about whether or not they're going to pay him, what they plan on paying him. For Colorado, I think it's a solid pickup there for Drury and Necas. I know that first game for both of those guys on Colorado didn't go that well, but it's only been a small sample size of games for all these guys on their new teams. And they're going to take a bit of time, get used to playing with these other guys and, this different atmosphere that they're playing in. So I've got my eyes on how these guys on their new teams play out until the playoffs. And then, of course, once the playoffs reach, that's a whole different story. Playoff heroes are born every year. Maybe it'll be one of these guys for their teams and maybe not. Who knows? But it should be fun to watch and see how these guys end up playing for their teams as the season moves along.
Well, I'll re-list the full trade, Mark McKelvey, then you can tell me who you think the winner is. It was Mikko Rantanen, Taylor Hall, and Niels Juntrop going to Carolina. Colorado gets Martin Necas, Jack Drury, a second-round pick from Carolina in 2025, a fourth in 2026 from Carolina. Chicago gets their own draft pick back from Carolina in the deal, a third-round pick in 2025. They retain half of Mikko Rantanen's $9.25 million contract, which I think is roughly $4,650,000 was the retention that Chicago got. So, Mark McKelvey, what did you make of the deal? Who do you think the winner is? And do you kind of see how this deal will work out for both teams in the long run?
Yeah, I understand why it went down, and I think we're going to start to see this a little more in the NHL with the way things are probably heading, the cap going up. There's going to be a little more flexibility to do moves like this, and teams they're not going to let their superstar players just walk. If they can't come to an agreement on that contract, Colorado wasn't going to pay him what he wants. You get why they made the deal. Unfortunately for the Avalanche, I don't think they're going to be the winners when all is said and done, at least in the immediate future, because I think Carolina is a huge add, a team that goes into the playoffs every year after a great regular season. They need something else to get over the hump. And maybe they're looking at this as the window to win this year. If Carolina doesn't re-sign Mikko Rantanen, you could say it's a complete failure by them. But if they somehow win this year and they don't re-sign him, who cares, right? It doesn't really matter. So I think at the end of the day, no one's a winner just yet. Carolina has a bigger opportunity, in my opinion, just because I think Colorado is really shaking up their team. You heard the comments from Nate McKinnon, and the coach, Bednar, even said, kind of comes out of left field. You don't expect a player of his caliber to be traded, 2 top 10 scorers in the league to be dealt. It really shakes the league to the core. I think it sets the tone for the future, but I'm not sure we're going to have a winner for a long time out of this one, unless I don't think the Avalanche, this is going to be their year, unless the Carolina Hurricanes, I guess you get to a final. Even if you don't win, I guess that's considered probably a big success. But Carolina's notorious for not spending too much money. Maybe they're all in on signing Rantanen at that price he wants. Maybe not. They didn't re-sign Jake Gensel after they got him last year either.
Well, they have had preliminary talks with Mikko Rantanen to have the Carolina Hurricanes on a new deal. We'll see if they're able to get that done. I also will mention Carolina was in on both TJ Miller and Elias Pettersson with Vancouver. Obviously couldn't get neither a deal for either of those two forwards done, so they go for even bigger fish and get Mikko Rantanen from Colorado, as you mentioned. Nathan McKinnon said never in a million years would he think that his teammate, his line mate, would get dealt. And I'll go to you, Manny. Who do you think came out better in this trade?
I think we're talking hockey now. I'm still celebrating the Eagles' trip to the Super Bowl here at Lincoln Financial Field. Jalen, what's up, my man? Great job. MVP right there. Woo.
Ask him about the knee brace. Ask him about the knee brace.
He's not wearing a knee brace. Listen, Mikko Rantanen is the best player in this deal, so that means Carolina wins the trade in the now. And I think Mark alluded to it in his comments. I think I heard him clearly when he said Carolina was maybe 4th or 5th down the list when you think about cup contenders. Now I think it brings them up to the top of the list with regards to that. What's even more important for Carolina, in my mind, not only do they get a 100-man player who can play center or wing, but because Chicago took on salary, Carolina still has an opportunity to add before the deadline. Maybe they will get JT Miller. Maybe they will still get Elias Pettersson. They were shopping Kotkaniemi to Vancouver to try to get Pettersson. So maybe that deal still happens and they take another swing for the fence. I really don't like this deal for Colorado. And I think you guys alluded to it with some of the comments from the coach and Nathan McKinnon. When the core of your group, the guys who build the culture in your room, are taken aback by a move like this, that digs a deep hole. And it's tough to get out of that hole, especially as we've seen in the last few games. They have looked disjointed right now. And I think it's going to affect them as we move into the latter quarter of the NHL regular season here. I really don't like the move for Colorado at all.
Not just a core member of the team, Manny. It's even more a guy who has 100 points, plays with Nathan McKinnon, has been with Nathan McKinnon basically their whole playoff runs and the cup run and the cup win. So he is such a massive part of the team and such a great player that giving him away, he almost will never win that kind of trade. And again, I think we all mentioned they didn't. And Martin Necas, I think, is a good player, but I don't think he's as good as Mikko Rantanen or ever will be as good as Mikko Rantanen. So if Carolina can find a way to sign Rantanen, I also mentioned before we go that Rantanen did say after being dealt that he was willing to take a significant pay cut under market value to go back to Colorado. But we'll just have to see if he's back in Carolina or if he's walking, and if Carolina does lose him for nothing in the summer. But for Manny Pava, JC Coots, Lucas Ireland, Mark McKelvin, myself, Spencer Byers, and the great Mark Perry behind the camera, I'd like to thank you so much. We'll see you next week on RTV Sports Rap.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
You're watching an interesting local show on Rogers TV and you want to know more. That's when you head to rogerstv.com. Our website provides more information about our programs, our hosts, our schedule, and about how you too can get involved with Rogers TV. Visit us online at rogerstv.com.
Missing your favorite channels? Get them on Rogers Xfinity TV.